Things like this usually don't happen in a community like ours. It's very tragic.
Investigators release autopsy reports today for 8 members of an Ohio family killed execution style.
We begin tonight with a deadline that has passed for the mother of 2 missing children from Rexburg.
Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda, and in today's video we are going to be discussing some updates from some cases that I previously covered. Now, if you're new here, I just want to let you know that I am no expert. I'm just someone who follows true crime, and I report on what I follow. Basically, I do all the research, so you don't have to. I do try to bring cases that many people are not talking about. I mean, I'm following like Karen Reed and Lori Vallow and Stefan Stearns and Brian Kober. I am following all those, but many people are reporting on those, and I don't want to just bring you the same things over and over again. There's definitely other cases out there that people should hear about too. I will try to remember to put timestamps in the description box below, but please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. They're both ways to really help me out, and of course they're free. I also have to say that everyone in this video is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. Please feel free to go do your own research, come to your own conclusions. First, we're going to start off with the state of Florida versus Nathan Gingles. Background on this case that I'm going to give you just a little bit. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder of his estranged wife, 34-year-old Mary Gingles, her father, 64-year-old David Ponzer, and Mary's 36-year-old neighbor, Andrew Farron, after Nathan shot and killed all 3 of them on February 16, 2025. When Nathan did this, there was an injunction put in place between him and Mary forbidding any type of contact between him and Mary and him and their 4-year-old daughter that was actually living with Mary. He wasn't allowed to have contact with her either. Mary's father, David, had moved from Missouri, I think it was, to stay with her because of how unhinged Nathan was acting while all this was taking place. Andrew, unfortunately, was just a bystanding neighbor who Mary ran to his house just to get away from Nathan when he was chasing her with his gun. I did cover this video. I'll go ahead and put it right here. So if you want to catch more details about that, so that way when I go ahead and update you, you know a little bit more about it. But a judge found that there was probable cause that allowed the case to go to trial. Obviously, if you watched that video that I was just talking about, then you saw the surveillance video that was caught in the neighborhood of Nathan following Mary through the yards while their 4-year-old daughter followed both of them while he pointed a gun at her and eventually take her life. Allegedly. Also, as I was hoping, the state did provide notice on March 8th that they are planning to seek the death penalty. And if you watched that video, or I'm just going to tell you here now, you know that I am not for the death penalty. In most cases, I think that it's something that we should do away with. It's not just a person on trial. There's so many people affected, and I really think that bottom line is it's really up to the victim's family. In my opinion, I haven't had to go through that. I can't really tell someone else how they feel. However, there was a case for the death penalty. This is it. This is one of them that deserves it. The fact that he was seen on video after violating a restraining order against her, chasing her while their 4-year-old daughter followed. Like, I'm not sure what deserves it more than that, other than the obvious schools and all that mess. But from there, the prosecution also filed on March 18th that they demand a notice of alibi for the hours of 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. on February 16th. If you remember, it was 6 a.m. that Nathaniel, or I always do that, Nathan, I don't know why I call him Nathaniel, Nathan appeared at Mary's home and took the life of all 3 of them. It was around 6 a.m., so 2 hours before and 2 hours after. His next court date is supposed to be May 15th at 10:30 a.m., and I am going to be following this case as closely as I can. This is one of those cases that for some reason it just stuck with me from the moment I started reading about it. I didn't cover it as soon as I read about it. I waited a little bit and was waiting for more details because when I first saw it, they were just 3 people that died. There was no details of who these people were other than Mary. I'm glad that more details have come out so we can follow it and hope that there's justice for all 3 of these people. So there's an update in the state of Oregon versus Michel Fournier. So this case out of Oregon, obviously 71-year-old Michel Fournier is accused of killing his estranged wife, 61-year-old Susan Lane Fournier. He reported her missing on November 22nd, and her body was later found on November 29th. Michael would have been arrested the same day and charged with second-degree murder. It's reported that Susan, who was often called Phoenix by the community that she lived in, she filed for divorce about 3 weeks before her death. Now, the updates in this case was that Michael was recently in court at the end of January and then again in the beginning of February, with his lawyer being quite upset. Basically, what happened was Michael told the jail deputy that he wanted to speak with the detectives. So the deputy told the detectives they wanted to speak with you. So then the detective went and spoke with Michael on January 23rd. And of course, his lawyer is not happy about this, saying that he was representative, that the detectives should have known not to go talk to them. She threw around requests to dismiss, all this stuff. They met again in the beginning of February, where the detectives brought copies and transcripts of the interview, provided it to them. She seemed as satisfied as she could be for now, and said that once she reviewed all the details and the transcripts and the recordings, that she would be filing motions accordingly. We'll see how that progresses. We did learn some details from some court documents. We learned that Michael was seen on surveillance video driving Susan's truck around after he reported last seeing her. This video also showed Michael with Susan's two dogs, the two dogs that were reported missing when she was reported missing and that were later found deceased. Investigators were also able to locate Susan's cell phone in the Columbia River, which was where its last signal was. Now, Michael's trial is set out until February 2026, so there is some time before this really gets going and we hear some more about it. So as it travels through, I will let you know any of the details. We're moving on to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Edward J. Watson. Background on this case, it's back from 1992 when 29-year-old Michelle Miller was found dead in the basement of an abandoned building. The case went unsolved until this past December 2024 when 65-year-old Edward Watson was arrested. During a press conference from the Commonwealth, they described what they believe was a murder-for-hire plot between Watson and Miller's ex, Daniel Ennis, who passed away in 2012. According to the Commonwealth, Daniel was abusive and wanted Michelle dead. Now, Daniel and Michelle's son did an interview saying that he doesn't believe that this was a case at all. I went into a little more depth with what he was saying in my video. I'll go ahead and add it here. But an update in this case was that on March 16th, it looks like a Middlesex grand jury indicted him on first-degree murder charge. So Watson is being held without bail, and his next court date will be April 16th, 2025. Moving right along, Georgia versus Christopher Wolfenbarger. So background for this case, Melissa, Christopher's wife, her family said that they last heard from her on Thanksgiving Day in 1998. After not hearing from her for some time, they decided that they would travel to Melissa and Christopher's house in Atlanta, but they found that the house was empty. The neighbors would say that Christopher had moved the entire family out, and this is when Melissa's mother would report her missing to police, which would always is a red flag, is when someone else other than the person that was living with the woman or the husband reports them missing. Never a good sign. Police would speak to Christopher, who would tell them that he and Melissa had an argument and she went out for a walk and just never returned, because that's 100% normal for your wife never to return and that be okay. Now, back in April of 1999, a bleached skull was found off Avon Ave in Atlanta, Georgia. And then just a few months later, in June 1999, police would find more dismembered remains in black trash bags in a wooded area. The body's identity would remain a mystery for the next 4 years before they were able to identify her as Melissa after her father was arrested for multiple murders that took place in the 1970s. And her mother, Norma, who was an accomplice to these murders, she spoke out to the news about her daughter missing after her husband was arrested and all this stuff came out. So then obviously that's a big thing. If a serial killer's daughter's missing, they're obviously going to look at him first, I would assume. I'm assuming they ruled him out right away. They said he was ruled out. I'm assuming he was the first person to look at, since obviously the people closest to you are the ones that do you harm usually. However, from there was really no movement into the case until August of 2024, where Christopher was arrested and indicted, with the indictment saying that he inflicted homicidal violence sometime between December 10th, 1998 and April 29th, 1999. Now, back in October of 2024, Christopher was before a judge asking for bond after he was arrested. The prosecution argued that he should not be released due to the charges of homicidal violence against him. And they obviously cited his previous record of 4 felonies that were largely due to thefts. He also failed to appear before the court on previous charges and had a probation violation in 2003. So obviously he's not real good at following rules. He also hid when he was being arrested, and that gave the judge indication that he was going to flee. She basically said the reason that you hide is so that you can flee. So she denied his bond, and he's being held in jail still. More recent reports show that Christopher's attorney asked the judge to toss out the case, arguing that the state took too long from the time of the alleged crime to bring the indictment. So basically, he took too long from the time that the murder took place till he was charged, which is outrageous that you think there's a time limit on that. But thankfully, on March 17th, the judge denied this motion, and the next plea hearing is set for May 5th. And lastly, we are going to head over to Michigan and talk about the state of Michigan versus Desmond Burks. This case began back in April 22nd of 2023 when the Detroit police received a parking complaint in the area of Coyle Street where they observed a white Land Rover blocking their driveway. While they were investigating why this car was blocking someone's driveway, the police saw that there was blood on the interior of the vehicle, when they decided that they would have the vehicle towed back to the impound lot and investigate more there. They also made a visit to the owner of the vehicle's owner's home, Dr. Devon Hoover, who was 53 years old. However, at the time, they did not make contact with him or anyone else at the home. The following day, the doctor's family reached out to police because he never made it to Indiana where his sick mother was living, so they wanted a welfare check done. Once the police were there, they noticed that there was blood on the exterior of the back door, which basically gave them the go-ahead to go inside and check to make sure everyone was safe. However, upon entering the home, they would find Devon deceased on the 3rd floor in like an attic crawl space. He was face down, wearing just socks and wrapped in a blood-soaked carpet. An autopsy of him would show that his cause of death was 2 gunshot wounds to the back of his head, and cell phone data and surveillance data would lead police to Desmond Burks, who was a lover of Devon's, I guess, and sometimes would do sexual services for money. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned it then, but it did come out that Desmond was arrested shortly after, within like 3 to 5 days of the murders and suspicion of it. However, due to the fact that they couldn't, I guess, keep him in jail, he was released 3 days later with no charges. However, it was surveillance, and it was during that time that he was being surveillanced that he committed a separate homicide. He actually was charged with a road rage incident in April 2024 where he fatally punched a 67-year-old man and just left him for dead on the side of the road, which he unfortunately did pass away a few days later. Now, an update in this case, it looks like since we discussed his original arrest, he was ordered to have a mental evaluation be completed. Then back on December 16th, the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry did find that he was competent to stand trial. Of course, the defense wanted their own test done, which was done, and March 7th, they also deemed him competent to stand trial, and now we're just waiting for his next court date to move forward through this system so that his victims can get justice. But as you know, along with this case and any of the other ones I just talked about, as more comes out, I will definitely go ahead and update you guys. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing weekly ones. Some things in my life changed a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Please make sure, like I said, to like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on audio form, make sure to subscribe to it so you know when I put out new episodes. But that's all I have for today. So stay safe out there. The world's an ugly place.